What else we have to learn from this? This person made haram for himself, forbidden for himself, something Allah allowed. This relationship between husband and wife is also sacred. Just like motherhood is sacred, marriage is also sacred. And marriage is something Allah calls mithaqan ghalidha, a heavy contract, a heavy agreement. This heavy agreement that He describes in the Quran is the same wording He uses when prophets made an agreement with God that they will deliver His message. That's also mithaqan ghalidha. And in Surah An-Nisa He says about marriage, وَأَخَذْنَا مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا غَلِيظًا. It's a very heavy agreement. Don't take it lightly. In these particular sets of ayat, Allah is especially hard on men. Because an argument is two-way street. When a man says something crazy, it's not like he was just sitting around one day and he decided to say something crazy. Some men are like that. But a lot of times, the women are saying some crazy things too. And they're poking and they're poking and they're poking, and eventually he just loses it and says something crazy. But in this particular ayah, Allah is holding men responsible. You better watch your tongues. You're the head of the household. You're supposed to have more self-control. You can't lose it. And if you lose it, you better watch your tongue still. You don't get to cross the line. So then after Allah says, okay, those of you who have done this, ثُمَّ يَعُودُونَ لِمَا قَالُوا, and they want to go back from what they said. They want to take it back. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. I want to take it back. In any other deed, you just make tawbah and you move on with life. That's it. Easy. But here Allah said, no, that's not enough. فَتَحْرِيرُ رَقَبَةٍ. You have to free a slave. You have to free a slave. مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَتَمَاسَّ, before they can touch each other. I just called her like she's like my mother. I didn't mean it. I was just mad. No, that's not good enough. You have to go free a slave. Why free a slave? Some scholars talk about why free a slave. Because when you said that to a woman, you put her in a kind of emotional prison. She's not quite your wife anymore. She's not quite free and divorced anymore. And you created a misery for her. And to make up for that, Allah says, now, to give you an idea of the kind of misery you put her in, you have to take someone that is in actual misery, in the misery of slavery, and you have to free them. So you get some appreciation of the pain you caused. The penalty fits the crime. That's in Allah's law. So He says, go free a slave before they can touch each other. ذَلِكُمْ تُوعَظُونَ بِهِ. That's the advice you're being given. وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ. And Allah knows what you're up to. Then He says, and فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ, and whoever can't do that, okay, somebody can't afford to free a slave. What do I do now? And by the way, nowadays if something like this happened, we don't have slaves around, so what are we going to do? So He says, فَمَنْ لَمْ يَجِدْ فَصِيَامُ شَهْرَيْنِ مُتَتَابِعَيْنِ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَتَمَاسَّا. They have to fast, listen to this carefully now, that man has to fast 60 consecutive days, 2 consecutive months, before they can touch each other. In Ramadan when you fast, أُحِلَّ لَكُمْ لَيْلَةَ الصِّيَامِ الرَّفَثِ إِلَى نِسَائِكُم. You can be intimate with your spouse in the night of the fast. Not these fasts, they're not 30 days of Ramadan. People are like, alhamdulillah, it's over. This is Ramadan times 2. And let me tell you something, in Ramadan, Allah makes the fasting easy. Try fasting 30 days of Ramadan, then try fasting 2 days after that. It's 10 times harder. Because yuridullahu bikumul yusr. Allah wants ease for you in Ramadan, He makes it easy. It's way harder outside of Ramadan. And Allah says now 60 consecutive days. And what that means is if you miss one day, like 45 days, 46th day you missed it, or you couldn't do it. Guess what? The counter resets back to 1 again. And then 60. Get to 60 consecutive before they can touch each other. If it was just 60 days, any 60 days. But shahrayni mutatabi'ayni. 60 consecutive days, 2 consecutive months before they can touch each other. How in the world is He going to do that? And then He says, and whoever can't do that, فَيَطْعَامُ سِتِّينَ مِسْكِينًا. Just like in any other parts of Sharia, when you miss a fast, then you can make it up by feeding somebody. You have to feed 60 people. But the question is, why fasting? When I fast, then things that are halal for me usually become haram. Right? Water is halal, it becomes haram. Food is halal, it becomes haram. The wife is halal, she becomes haram when I'm fasting. Isn't that the case? Allah says, you opened your mouth and you took something halal and you decided to make it haram. Let me teach you who makes halal and haram. You're going to learn for 60 days who makes halal and haram because you forgot when you opened your mouth like that. You forgot. So He says fast for 60 days. In that story, when the ayat came down, the lady didn't stop. Khawla said, he doesn't have money to free a slave. And he said, well, he could fast for 60 days. She said, he can't even do 1 day. When he misses one meal, he starts going blind. So he can't do. And then he said, okay, well, he can feed 60. And she said, we don't know. We barely have food ourselves. Who's He going to give to? So the Prophet ﷺ then brought a basket of dates and said, here, go give it to 60 people. And the leftovers, take them home. That's what He did for her.